So welcome to both of you. Why don't you just start, maybe we'll start with you, Lynn.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about your background and then what led you to working in the fashion industry.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for having me. It's interesting to see how, before I was in your seat and now I'm here, and it's just amazing to share my journey. And when sometimes you're working and working, you don't realize, wow, you've really been on a journey. So it started off for me when I was 12 years old. I was enrolled. I moved to Maui, and my parents enrolled me in 4-H, and they wanted me to get into the community, get involved, and I learned how to sew, and that was like my spark. I was like excited, and it was just making a product. I just loved to sew. That was that was everything I could think of, and sewing was. I did everything from prom dresses, making my own clothes, and all of that. So I wasn't sure, like, is this a hobby, or going into fashion is something career. At the time, I didn't know if that was an option. I continued it. I did. But I learned more. I just super exciting. It was a me, and I just to work, and I just worked my way. Ended up working for corporate companies, fashion corporate companies. Experienced all of that for like about 7 years. So, and then that led me to coming back home to Hawaii because family's here, and I had kept in touch with the people who I interned with. It was a man, and they decided to. So I was like, the company from you, and from then on, I've just been going forward, making designs, doing what I love, and it's been, oh gosh, it's like almost 20 years, but yeah. So that's where I am, and I'm constantly growing, and I was in Macy's. I had, well, I guess when I had taken over this existing manufacturing company, they had accounts, so I was able to be in Macy's, experience working with a department store, the buyers, the whole buying office, a corporation of that size, and distributing my clothes into all of their locations in the state of Hawaii. So that has gained me a lot of experience in what it takes to run a business in Hawaii. And then from then on, I evolved, and then I have now my own store at South Shore Market, and then I also have an online store as well. So it's constantly evolving, and that's where I am today.
So really, it all goes back to your time in 4-H.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Amazing.
It
Yeah.
is. Yes, 4-H has. Your parents just say, just go and like make some friends and do this and work with the community. But it was actually a great stepping stone to giving me opportunities to discover my passions and what I was interested in.
Yeah. So do you still follow the fashion program here?
No, I don't. I don't.
So
I mean,
I'll
yeah,
share with you a surprising
would.
fact. It's actually in our college, in the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resilience. It is the most requested program in terms of students asking for information.
Oh.
Our fashion program.
Amazing, because when I first started the fashion program, it was a small school.
Yeah, yeah.
And just when you said CTAR, I was like, you changed the name. And I was like, when did that happen? But
I know, I
so
did
much.
think about editing to say that when you graduated, it was probably still human resources.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So that's what I know. So it's like, oh, it's very, times have changed. And I'm just fascinated with this facility. I love it. I wish it could come back to school because it's like, there's so many things, there's so many spaces for creativity. And that's what's important is fueling your creativity and doing what you love, because everything else will fall into place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many more resources and opportunities now. But so Camille, why don't
Yeah.
you tell us, about your background and kind of what led you to your business today?
Sure. So I moved here. Hong Kong is another place where you have a lot of fashion, a lot of manufacturing, and I grew up like enjoying feeling open a boutique. That was like my dream. I was gonna open a boutique. I was gonna, it was gonna be a women's clothing boutique. I basically had it all. But I said, no, I wanna. And then, and, uh, and went through the retail management program. So it's kind of a unique retail management, different. It's not every college has it. And I knew that I had wanted to retail to gain the experience in order to open my it was all about running the store and learning and the buying. The buying was what I think like interesting to me. I really wanted to buy for a company. I found that part really interesting. Went into the management operations part. So from there, I got into an internship with Duty Free Galleria. So now they're known as T Galleria, but they're in Waikiki. I think they're still open after COVID. They had a rough go, but it was a really, really interesting experience for me because it was a tough company to work for. Like you really had to be on it. And when I started, I was the youngest in the whole building, and it also happened during a time where we went through a recession. People were losing their jobs. 3 months into my time there, they laid off a third of the company, and you really have to learn how to do everything when they lay off a third of the company. So from there, I moved up doing retail management, luxury retail in Waikiki, until I decided to leave that to start my own clothing business finally. And then did that until I discovered that I had changed my passion after so long and I wanted to go into manufacturing. And it was really because I felt like there was just a hole in the market. Like, why is no one doing this? And I know why no one's doing it. It's hard. But I really wanted to do it. And so I moved into manufacturing and fashion in Hawaii. So, yeah.
While you were going through that process, did you ever consider leaving? Like maybe, maybe it's too hard here.
That's a good question. Not going back to Seattle because I didn't like the weather there. So I really actually wanted to stay, but I did consider for a time moving back to Hong Kong because the environment there is like it's very city, like New York. It's very city. You get like this very fast-paced energy, and you learn a lot. And it is different culturally from here. We're very nice to each other in Hawaii. It's even in a work environment, we're very nice to each other, I feel. But when you work in other cities, they're not so nice. I shouldn't say it that way, but it's business. It's about business, It's very business minded, and we're very community minded here. And I think that it's different. So I was looking at one point to get maybe a little bit more of that experience, but decided to stay here. Yeah.
For students who are kind of interested in going into that field, would you recommend that at some point they do go away, or do you think that we have enough of an industry here that they can kind of get the experience they need here?
I think it's never yeah. Your even just your realm of what's possible unless you can see more things. You can see what other people are doing, what are their best, and be able to think about
Is always here. I love the community. But what I took away from what is very special, and there's nowhere else that has that same, like, you know, that local sense of community and just the love and justness of Hawaii. When you go out there and you see everyone else and they're just grinding away, working, and you know, it's different. It's really different. But just, I mean, besides that, just, you know, also getting experience and seeing what other people are doing, resources, making connections, that's important as well, because it just gives you more knowledge and fuel to, like, you know, take to the next level.
Yeah, I think, to my understanding, both of you and your brands are very community centric. And so I guess maybe we can start with you, Lynn. What sorts of collaborations do you have with the community, and how does the community kind of work with you and you work with them to create your overall brand?
Well, collaborations, I mean, just having a storefront, you know, you're meeting different people, you're meeting different organizations, customers. We collaborate with several organizations, and it's just giving back to the community from just, you know, like silent auctions or, you know, donating clothing. That is always like an added benefit, but, you know, it's just being there for support. And the community will support you in return. But I mean, of course, you're not doing it for the return of that, but it just brings you joy that you're part of something, that it's not just you by yourself in the community.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for us at Aloha Cut and Cloth, a big part of our mission is actually to develop the workforce locally, because manufacturing, especially garment manufacturing locally, is struggling. You know, we're seeing a lot of people age out, especially sewers, people with a lot of knowledge, not just sewers. You're talking sewing machine mechanics, cutters, because people have to cut the fabric in order for the pieces to be sewn. Like, there's a lot of jobs in this industry that take special skills, and they're aging out. And so that's a really big thing for us, is how do we continue to build the garment industry locally, reinvigorate it, because we have a level of designers right now, a very high level of designers, and it's growing, and that's great. But how do we also tie in the manufacturing and make sure that we're making things here? And workforce development is a very big part of it. And so for us, it's really important that we're working with different groups and people to develop the next generation of sewers, cutters, you know, fabric printers, print operators, you know, all kinds of things, pattern makers, and that we're giving people opportunity to do that. There's a lot of people that do amazing in this industry, and they have 30 plus experience, you know, 30 plus years experience, but those people aren't going to be around forever. So we've got to give an opportunity to the people like yourselves, who are growing and looking to move into this industry, as someone who can start at a lower level, move up. So a very big mission actually with our brand. That, and we also really want gap. Small and micro businesses don't have a place to turn for manufacturing. It's either you make it at home by yourself and you bring it to your market, or you have to be at the point where you have to order hundreds and hundreds to have it manufactured somewhere else. So people can move up and scale their business in a way that makes sense, honestly, because you can't go from here to here. You really have to move slowly up to that point.
Yeah, so for students maybe who are interested in kind of getting involved, what are some of the avenues for that?
For us, we're really open to internships. We have actually 2 employees on our staff now who are students from the U.S. Fashion School, who the last, I think, 5 years. So we're really open to, hiring and working with them on internships. Yeah, tons of opportunity. I mean, in the future, we want to have more technology in our space. So there's really an opportunity for people to learn how to operate those new technologies too. Like you guys have a laser cutter here. We'd love to have a laser cutter for fabric. Then we need a laser cutter operator for that as well. So there's a lot of ways that we can grow locally and also support the community or the next generation of people wanting to get into industry.
Yeah, so kind of in your experience, what are some of the things that you see in the short term that could have a huge impact in terms of, technology or maybe resources that could really help the community?
Oh, in the manufacturing industry, technology for sure.
Yeah.
And manufacturing it's a high cost to get into. It's not a business that you can. I mean, you can start a little sewing business in your home and just sew, and then that's kind of like it's manufacturing essentially. That is manufacturing. But when you're talking about garment production and the whole production line, it's expensive to get into. So for us, it's really being able to have access to purchase those equipment, train those people, bring them here because you've got to ship it over, and that's a really big part for us in terms of like trying to figure out funding and how we can work for the government. So similar to Lynn, we actually purchased a space that was already in existence, because putting that together yourself it's a lot of work. Yeah. All the machines, all the everything, it's a lot of work.
You miss one screw and who knows what will happen.
Yeah, and we're an island, so we're not, it's hard for us to just look for machines everywhere. Mm-hmm. We're like, you need a new sewing machine, it's going to be a used machine, and it's going to come from someone else who is doing it, basically. We're limited sometimes in resources in that way.
Yeah, so Lynn, in your experience, having kind of observed the fashion industry, what are some of the things you see that could be a big impact and kind of change how things are here?
In terms of manufacturing?
Just in terms of the industry as a whole.
Oh gosh, in terms of the industry as a whole, I mean, it's definitely, what I'm seeing is it's getting smaller. And, it is the workforce, it's getting smaller. So, and as a business owner, it's frustrating because you want to share the skills that you've learned, the technology that's coming about, and you see potential. You see potential that we have so much talented people here that if we just have to find them, and that's what's been just in general. If just manufacturing or even design or just even creators, that's hard to find. And I'm glad that there is a program here that's continuing that as well.
Yeah, so there's lots of opportunity for students. Do you take interns as well, or do you have students?
Yes, definitely. And all this time I've been just working and working and doing. Realize that, you know, this is opportunity. Straight out of school could just have their own facility or be a designer, but just come and learn, intern, just to see if that's something that you are interested in. You know, we're here to show you what we've learned and much as you can. I mean, it's not just one area, not just, I'm gonna just have to learn the business side. You need to learn the accounting, people management, economics. You know, there's things that you need, everything. But I've had to learn the hard way. Like, you know, I just wanted to sketch pretty things. That's like a tiny portion of business, and the rest of it is managing a business. And your accounts dealt with in terms of making it work. So, you know, just definitely.
Area has been the most challenging for you?
Let's see. I think it's overwhelming. The business side has been very hard. Trying to switch. Some days I'm switching off from creative. This is my little 1 hour to be creative. Then this is my hour to be, you know, do payroll, and it's a lot to have to always manage that thought process because I'm not a numbers person, but I have to be a numbers person. I have to be able to manage and solve problems. You know, then in the middle of solving a problem, there's something happening in the warehouse that's a manufacturing problem, or you know, there's always something that has to be done. So you're always just kind of like bouncing around and on a daily basis. It's exciting though. It's exciting. There's a lot to it's never boring. So if you're interested in it, you know, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed, but there's so many things that you could learn. There's so many avenues. You could go deep and just learn one skill and be really good at it. There's so many personalities that could be in this industry. You don't have to be the one in front of the camera and you know, everyone knows about you. You could also be the person who's just sewing or doing the little crafty part. There's so many areas that a big range of talent could be part of.
Yeah. So Camille, what would you say are your top tips?
You know, basically to be honest with you, because I think a lot of people go into business ownership and they think, I'm really good at this one thing, or I enjoy this one thing so much. You know, say you're an artist, I love drawing, but there's so many other things. You're also running a business. And so that's a really big part. And I think for me, what I say to everyone is, one thing that I've taken away is you have to have a really good support system. And I don't just mean your family. I mean, you are networking with other entrepreneurs. You're being a part of the community, because entrepreneurship is lonely. It is a very lonely journey if you are not talking to anybody and just grinding yourself. And what you'll find is when you talk to other people, you'll feel like you'll be able to connect. Oh, you're having that problem? Yeah, I have that same problem too. It's not just me. There's nothing wrong with me. It's a problem. And so you can connect with somebody else and feel like, okay, how do we talk about this? How do we work through this together? I can't tell you how many times I've had an issue and I've just reached out to a fellow entrepreneur. Hey, I'm trying to talk through this thing. Can you just bounce ideas off of me? And I just wanna hear what you think, because sometimes you're so in it all the time that you can't see outside of, you know, what the problem is, what the issue is. Say, what if you look at it from up here, you know? And And I think that when you work in a company, you have those colleagues around you already. You know, you're a piece in a company, and so you come to work every day, and you have, you know, people you can talk to. You have that camaraderie. It's different. They're all your staff, or like really, really high level, or just personal in a way. Because sometimes your challenges are just, gosh, I just had a really long week. How do I shut it off? You know, like how do I let myself rest? How do I take a break? Because you know, one of the things you'll learn as an entrepreneur is like nothing. It doesn't sleep, right? The job doesn't sleep. You know, it's always going. It's always, you have to figure out how to rest on your own. You get burnt out really fast. Um, yeah, so that's one thing I always say is try to find a really good community of other people, other entrepreneurs, and I think that's why having a space like this is great. You know, the Entrepreneur Live that you guys have here is kind of for that purpose, right? Is you guys get to talk, collaborate, get to know other people, other businesses, and learn more and share. And that's basically the same idea.
Yeah, what sorts of things helped you build your network and your community?
Um, I know you're not going to want to, but you should go to networking events so you can meet other people. Um, and actually, I didn't want to go to a networking event, so I started a networking event myself in my store because I felt more comfortable inviting people into my space instead of going into someone else's space. So I just did that, and I used to host women's entrepreneurship events, and we'd say, everybody bring a glass of wine or some poo-poos and throw it all on the table and let's just talk story. And that, you know, it worked out great, actually. I wish I had time to do that again, but I don't. But it does help a lot. And networking can be a really, like, scary word, actually. But when you really think about it, it's just you're trying to get to know new people. You might know something that person needs to know, and that person might have something you want to know. How do you build mutually beneficial relationships with people? And you know, over time, I think that you end up with a very big network of people who can help each other and support each other. And just as someone might come to me for something, I might go to someone else. I can, you know, I feel like I'm always referring people out. Like, yeah, you know, I have a friend who can help you with that. She's doing something. She just told me about that. You know, I think you guys should meet up or something like that. Get coffee, and yeah, I think that's kind of the easiest way to build your network. Um, but yeah, just going out and meeting people. Yeah.
Okay. So Lynn, you talked a little bit about how you just wanted to draw pretty things. So can you kind of walk us through your creative process and how that goes from the initial thought
Oh,
to the
gosh.
finished garment?
It's a process. um, well, I mean, I don't want to overwhelm you, but you know, there's a lot of steps in terms of just the creative part. Of course, everyone has creativity, creative ideas. Um, I mean, the creativity never you never turn it off. You're constantly thinking about new ideas. There could be somewhere, something, anything that could just spark an idea, just walking outside. So, you know, that I think everyone, you know, has their version of creating creativity. But in terms of clothing, I'm always thinking about things. I'm looking at sales reports or, you know, the boring things, looking at like history, sales reports, looking at fashion trends, checking out what's happening in the community because not everyone is going to be wearing winter clothing where we have like almost one season. So a lot of it is a combination of gathering information, being aware of what's happening, you know, locally and in the world. And then when I have some ideas, I sketch it out. I create. then you have to make the pattern. You have to make the product. You have to make a prototype. And that goes with any creative industry. You make a prototype, you figure out if it works, how it works, does it function, there's so many little nuances within making a product, then just to get that to that point. When when you get to that point where it's good to go, then that's the next level of manufacturing.
Do you usually have a lot with your prototype, kind of going back and forth?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get obsessed about, and I make my team a little crazy, but I do get obsessed about like one little thing, and I'm like, I just can't get it right. But sometimes I have to go into this little world of figuring things out, and then you work through, and it's either it's not going to work out or it works out, or you you spin it to another idea. So it's the whole creativity process. But then you go into the manufacturing, and I don't know if you want to know further about that, but you have to look for the fabrics, you have to look for the resources, then you have to get it cut and produced, the orders, there's numbers of quantities that you're going to make, and you get that sewn, so you have to make instructions. Everything that you did, you have to write it down. Someone else has to make that product for you, and you instruct on how that's going to be made to your standard. Then the product comes back, you get it quality controlled, check for damages, check if it's perfect for the customer, put your price ticket, your labels on it, make it pretty, and then it goes into for sale. So that's in a nutshell from creativity to a finished product. So there's a lot of a process that goes on, and I think it's exciting to learn that process, or even just to see that process happen.
Yeah,
if it's not overwhelming.
Do you bring people in sometimes to kind of get a glimpse of the process in action?
No, but I mean, I'm open to that as well, because I have a warehouse. I have a big cutting table. I have fabrics that you could manually spread. There's a lot of computer technology out there, which I would love to get my hands on, but it's pricey. But I do everything from start to finish in my little warehouse. I have a design area, a sewing area. I have a pattern maker. I work with a small team. We do everything from start to finish. And then I have the store level as well. Then you figure out how that product is going to be sold, what the feedback is from the customer, if it was a great design to repeat. There's so many factors in seeing the whole process from start to finish.
Yeah, and it sounds like research is kind of a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. It is, and even if you're starting out, if you have one product, you always want to see if it sells. Who does it sell to? Is it a certain type of customer? Where do you find that customer? It's market research. Also promoting, marketing that product as well. There's so many things that go into just that one item.
Yeah.
So then you have to have more items, but yeah.
So one thing that fascinates me about your brand is that I feel like the market appeal is really wide-ranging. Mm-hmm. I know like teenagers, middle schoolers that are obsessed with your brand, but then also a lot of friends wear your clothing, a lot of like their mothers.
My foundation in creating a product is, besides just being a nice item, it's everything that you don't see and you don't realize what it is, but it's about the pattern making. It's the fit of the garment. People, when you put things, when my customers put you don't how I want mill that makes my specs the way I want it to be, because there's nothing out there in the market, from the printers that I use and the colors that I pick. So there's a big combination of things that it looks like a simple garment, but it's not. there's a lot more that goes into it.
Kind of the psychology of
Yes, it is. It is. It is. And that's what I enjoy. I enjoy the craft part of it, the crafting, the creating of something so simple, but it is big. And when you put it on, you realize this really does feel good.
kind of creating that experience.
Yes.
So Camille, in your business, in manufacturing, what's your favorite kind of part of what you do?
Oh, my favorite part is when the garments go out the door and they're done.
Saying goodbye is your favorite.
Because that means we finished the project. No, partially yes. But actually really enjoy working with the clients, because a lot of the clients that we have now are small business owners. They're micro business owners, I think is a better way to put it. They start off doing everything on their own, and we're able to come in and say, hey, let's give you a hand, like let's take a little bit off your plate so you can do the marketing, your website, your bookkeeping, your pop-ups that you do, all of those other things. And that's where I think I enjoy that most is feeding off all of their creativity, I guess I would put it. Because they do come in with a lot of energy, excitement. They're ready to start. A lot of actually people we work with are people who are starting their own fashion lines, and that's hard. It's a very hard thing to do. It takes time, and I think that's where I wish I had more guidance when I did it, because part of the reason I started the business was I tried for maybe like 5 years. I was like, okay, I'm going to start my business start my line this year. I have the store, I have the place to sell it. I'm going to start my own line this year. Yeah, this is too hard. Okay, so, let's try again next year, right? And it's because what Lynn mentioned, you have to pick the right fabrics. You have to figure out where you're getting that fabric from, who's printing your fabric. You need to find a pattern maker. Pattern makers are not everywhere in Hawaii, and if you want to be made in Hawaii, you have a lot less to work with. You have to find the right manufacturing partner. There's so many things that you have to figure out along that journey, that it is very hard to start, because I remember in the beginning I was talking to a pattern maker and they said, okay, well you got to figure out your fabric first. And then I go to the fabric, finally find the fabric person. Do you know what your pattern's gonna look like? Okay, well, you go back to and you kind of do this like back and forth.
Chicken and egg situation.
Yeah, it's like sort of a chicken and egg situation when you're starting out, because you really don't know, right? And they start throwing these words at you like, do you know? Such a high learning curve. And more, and that's what I try and do now. I don't have the level of experience that Lynn has, but I have my own experience to draw on of where my pain points really were when I was going through that, and I try to help our clients. Oh. That is 51% made in Hawaii. As well, it's a little bit up for interpretation at the moment. It's not super like stone, I would say. But for me, what that term means to me is that your products are sold here. That when you have the Made in Hawaii label, it's made with somebody sitting here at a machine, and that always comes at a premium. So it is tougher in the sense where it is more expensive to get into, and you have to go through all the details, because when you manufacture sometimes overseas, you just say, hey, person I found somewhere online, like, I like this dress. Can you, like, make this dress in this print and some kind of fabric like this? And then you get something back, right? And it looks kind of like what you wanted. Or maybe you found a really good manufacturing partner and it looks just like what you wanted. It's kind of hit and miss. And so it almost simplifies the process down into just like, I put something in I told someone what I wanted and I got something back. Whereas when you're talking about doing things made in Hawaii, you're talking about really going through the process, like as Lynn was mentioning, and you are paying attention to the fit, you're stopping, you're looking at the fabrics, you're doing everything step by step. It's definitely a longer process, but I think that our consumers nowadays are very educated in what they're looking at when they see it on the shelf. And so they want things that have been given that type of care, and it is noticeable too when they're shopping nowadays. And it really also depends on your market research, right? When you're maybe your customer doesn't want it, they just want this thing, and you can't produce it here, and that's also an issue, right? We can't produce everything here, but when it comes to garments, it is that's what it means to me, basically. Someone sat here and they've sewed it for you on the, in Hawaii. Yeah.
And why is that important to you?
That's important to me because it keeps the money in our local economy, where you're paying for things, like your dollar goes to the pattern maker that lives here. That pattern maker makes you something, it goes to the manufacturing person that lives here, that money stays here. And then when you put out products to people, to consumers, that they know that money has stayed here, and they can proudly shop that something that is made in Hawaii. And I think over time, people have become very price focused. But if I come from a background of luxury retail, where for me, it's about the story, and that garment more so than how much you're paying for it. I used to work for Gucci, and a big thing that we'd always talk about is craftsmanship. The artisans that make your pieces. You want to know why it's so expensive sometimes, because somebody sat there 40 hours to make this. It stayed with me when I was kind of feeling I carry forward now with the local cutting cloth.
Yeah. So Lynn, what about for you? Why is it important?
It's, well, important in many ways, but when I started, working here or taking over the manufacturing business, that's kind of like that's the only way you did business here. And ran with it, and over time, you really appreciate the process, ability, the people who have skills, just seeing it. When I was in New York, I had the experience of the corporate world. I just did one thing. I just sketched, and that's all I did. But I didn't really, sometimes I product. I would see a fit sample, and that's it. Like that, it's gone. I would have to go to the store and look for it. Or sometimes my design didn't even make it to the floor. But a lot of them were made overseas, so I don't know what. Is it the trim that I picked? I don't know. So there was a lot of disconnect.
Yeah.
Everything is departmentalized. You're working and just churning out product every season. Coming back here, it was seeing the whole process. You really appreciate the entire process. You appreciate everyone who puts their hand into that product. And I think it shows in the product itself, the love, the care that went into it, and that's why when your customers come and pick up your product, they're like, this is made for me. And you see that as a full circle. So seeing things from start to finish, that's what makes it so important to be made in Hawaii.
Okay. I mean, I think that's really inspiring to kind of get those two perspectives about why things are so important here. And you kind of mentioned it's a premium, right? That idea of buy local. You're still working in that kind of luxury industry because having these things made here, it is a luxury, right? And we are paying a premium for it, but it's what's so important. And it does go back to that idea of community and of continuing to kind of develop the community here. So Lynn, you just mentioned, that your mentors helped you kind of see that this was the path. And in anything, mentorship is really important. And so maybe both of you could kind of talk about some mentors that you've had that have really helped you and how they've inspired you in this industry and to kind of become who you are today.
There's so many mentors. Mentors can come from anywhere, and it's a matter of, like I can't say like I'm going to be like your mentor and you're going to learn, you're going to be successful. It is just, your understanding your capability of how much you want to learn, how much you want to take in, what drives you to do what you want to do. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to own your own business. You could just be really good at what you do. And I think the world needs those people too. And it's just figuring out what makes you happy. And this business of making clothes, what makes me happy. Everyone has that, as in terms of what's their limits, and finding that mentor or finding that inspiration, someone who is going to help guide you. That's why you're here at school and you're learning and you're figuring out what works for you.
I have actually a couple people. I mean, in mind. When I first started, I was my first job in retail. Actually, I was working in Mānoa Marketplace, and there used to be a store there called Chelsea. You don't know, it doesn't look like a store now because there's a bunch of children running around inside it. It's like that daycare or school in the corner. To be one of my first, the owner Naomi, she was a boutique, she ran the boutique, and she's a former flight attendant actually who opened the boutique, and he took in a lot of girls my age who were in college. One of them I think was from the fashion school too that I used to work with, and her was the way she was giving opportunity. Knew that I was very, so when I was like, I don't know, 19 or something like that, she took her to a buying. Nothing compared to the ones. Then she let me buy like the little bag hooks for the table and things like that. Who see passion and let you explore it, and that at the time was like a really big influence for me. And then when I was working at DFS, I had another woman who was a very strong influence for me too. And there's something she's always said that's always stayed with me is like, I'm laughing, so I'm not crying, is what she'd say. And basically, it's like you're gonna have a hard time at some point, right? But it's how are you getting through that challenge? How are you overcoming it? How are you looking at it? Are you sitting there crying? Why did this happen to me? Or are you going, okay, let's laugh it off. How do I overcome this? How do I move forward? And that really stuck with me. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're getting close to the Q&A period, so maybe as kind of a last prompt, what is one thing that both of you are really proud of in your journey? Kind of one of your biggest successes.
You can go first.
Oh,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess I'll go. There's so many things that makes me proud of. I actually, I'm proud that I've actually made it through this process, and just being able to build something from, just grow, seeing something grow and seeing the results, seeing the customers that are happy. But I'm also proud of pushing myself to the limits, learning new things, figuring out problem solving, creating a great team that's going to support me because I can't do it all myself. So I'm very proud that I have these people who believe in me and I believe in them, and that's really important.
Yeah, I think that, if I really go back and think about it, I'm just proud of myself for starting, to be frank. Like, it's hard to just say I'm gonna dive headfirst into starting my own business and just have faith in yourself that you're gonna make it through. Because when you're running your own business, particularly in retail, there's a lot of ups and downs. There's good days, bad days. You could be feeling cloud nine one day, something happens, and the next day you're like, oh my gosh, why am I doing this? And so I think that, just proud of myself for starting, honestly, because I could have gone through the rest of my life working in retail management and said, that's a dream that I wish I had pursued when I'm 60, 70, whatever. But no, I did it. So, yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, now we'll go ahead and we'll open it up to the audience if anyone has any questions.
Yes.
I see clothing as a capital-intensive process, and so throughout your steps, how were you able to either mitigate risks or tolerate before making big investments into the next step? You able to kind of share about that process story?
Do you want to try that one?
Yeah, it's very capital intensive.
It is.
I think about it a little bit more is that, especially for like to it, you put a lot into the research and once you have something that works, that you don't you can kind of keep going with that. Like that's gonna continue to pay forward. I wouldn't think so much about like how capital intensive it is in the beginning, but like what is the potential from one thing. As far as the rest of or something, 500 units of it. You want to start 30 and want to grow and slowly get there, especially because what you're going to want is feedback, and you might change, you might alter, and yeah, I think that's start slow and slowly move forward, but also understand the value of your investment up front.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. But I know from your point of view, this does sound overwhelming. You have to know. You feel like you need to know, but just to start, of course, having the great idea, do a lot of research, understanding what are you going to target, what's your market. That's very important. I mean, you could have any great product, but if it's targeted to the wrong market, it doesn't go anywhere. Once you have that focus, start small, create prototypes. You could always, see what your friends think. That's a great place to start if there's interest. And then you could just approach stores, small boutiques, just grow from there, and you get feedback. The more you engage with other people in the business, you get other ideas. And as far as just making a product, I mean, if you can, that's what I've done, is just learn everything myself and I just learned everything in terms of relying on myself to make everything from start to finish. I mean, everyone has the ability, but that's what kept me to survive, to figure out like, okay, if I have to pivot, I'm going to I have to make the product from start to finish, make the patterns, drape the patterns, sew the garment. If I have to sew 5 pieces, I'll sew 5 pieces. There's, it just, I think it's learning about just understanding the entire process of making the product, then those things will just flow. So you could make things on a budget. You could go to the fabric store, you could make a product. You don't have to have this big production. Start small and, just make one prototype, see if people, that's where it starts. It's just having that one thing to find if there's a interest in the market. And then you go from there.
Yeah.
Any other
You
questions?
mentioned a little bit about made in Hawaii, where the production is 51% produced in Hawaii. Would you consider, say, you import fabric, but you sew it in Hawaii? Would that be considered as made in Hawaii?
So basically how the formula works, and I'm just pulling it from the Made in Hawaii Festival. When you apply for the Made in Hawaii Festival, you have to fill out a formula. And that formula is based on that 51%. And so what you're looking at is you're putting in, okay, where does the fabric come from? Is that off island? What's on island? And that's where you're trying to calculate your 51%. So we don't have a fabric mill here. So, I mean, unless she's got one.
No, I don't have one.
but it's got to come from somewhere else.
Yeah.
But how is that balancing out with making the fabric design, the prints that are on your pieces, is that local? Are the sewers local? So really figuring out how that kind of plays into that.
Cost or hours?
Okay.
Everyone interprets it different. And of course, you can't you're not knitting the fabric, or you're not but there should be some level of the design, or just some kind of made it like a whole locally, having their hands in it. Of course, sometimes the design is the majority of it. So, and it could be a lot of products too, because food is being made here. They get all of their ingredients from sources and they put it together. So, that's why I guess it's kind of vague.
You can use a term as craft material source.
I think you can use whatever term you like, designed in Hawaii, all of that. I think specifically what we're referring to is if you actually go check out the government website, there is a logo you can apply for, a Made in Hawaii logo that that you can put on your products, or for something like Made in Hawaii Festival, they do have that same kind of formula as well that they use. But it's really to promote Made in Hawaii and try to give clients or customers. I think this program's aimed mainly for outsiders, people on the mainland, whatever, tourists, to understand the premium of a Made in Hawaii product. But as far as if you wanted to label it crafted in Hawaii, you designed in Hawaii, sewn in Hawaii, you could really do rules around that, honestly. But if you wanted to have that premium label, yeah, you would look into how you could apply and be a part of that program as Made in Hawaii.
But in general, with just clothing regulations, you do need to have a country of origin of where your products are made, or so you could say it is made in the USA with imported fabrics. Usually people word it like that. So I mean, just look at your clothing that you have, read the labels of what other companies have on their, printed on that as well, because there is a law that you have to follow.
Yeah. I guess law and marketing is two different
Yes.
things.
Yes.
So I understand there's a regulatory compliance for clothing to have origin, material, those sorts. But let's say we're talking about smaller products like beanie or maybe like a hair scrunch, or would those products still have to comply with?
If
Sorry,
you
I know this is-
no, if you had a, like, say for instance, for a scrunchie, you bought those fabrics from a store and you put it together, you assembled it, you designed it, you made something unique about it, that is considered made in Hawaii. And of course you're not saying that you're not claiming that you made the fabric, and you could also, that's a little gray area, but yes, it's always, I think, being just open and oh, wow, you're making questions. My brand is where? The fabric, but it's all USA. I'm so proud to say that everything's made in the USA. I have it all knitted, printed, all in the USA, and it stays as much as local that I could possibly control. And yeah, it's just comfortable. I don't know if that helps you, but
your target market?
gosh, the target market, I would say that a good general is, who I focus on is around, the age group is 30, it could be younger, 30 and up. It's usually working professionals. I've noticed that, I found that, anyone younger, they have, their disposable income is not much. I mean, they want to do with the more trendier items. I cannot keep up with the trends. It's too hard for me. So it's just more thinking about my customer at their stage in their life, when they have a better income, they're working, they want to have a little bit more put together things. Trend is maybe not as important, somewhat important, staying relevant. Thank you.
And are you thinking about diversifying?
Oh yeah, oh my gosh. I'm always thinking about diversifying. I'm always dabbling I dabble a little in kids wear, men's wear. There's always challenges because sometimes I don't feel it. Like, it's like I've made prototypes. It wasn't the right combination. I want to make sure that I have the right for menswear. I just had a men's aloha shirt, family wear, and it was painful. It was painful to produce because I didn't, like, the fabric had to be a certain way, the construction, the fit, everything had to fall into place. And when I do my research, I realize men have a lot of things to say about how their clothes are. You don't think so, but they have a lot, from the fit, the way it feels, the comfort, the function. It's not just like putting on a aloha shirt or any dress shirt. There's so many wants and needs that, you know, you have to figure out what direction you're going to focus on. So I would like to, it's eventually going to happen, but I always have to make sure I have the right research and knowledge to put a good product. So same with my current collection. I had to research how to make this, find a fabric. I researched and looked everywhere from available sources, what kind of fabrics were out there, and they weren't the quality that I wanted. So I had to resort to making my own, and I had to find a knitting factory, go through a lot of prototypes. And then on top of that, people wanted prints, so I had to go and find prints. And it's just figuring out as you go along from the customer's needs and wants, what everyone is looking for, you evolved. So eventually there'll be other categories. Hey.
Sharing a lot of your stories that has really helped me out. And just my question is like, with a lot of kind of students and companies, start my small business, and then like every time, like, every day I just got lost, and then all this is cut out in my small. I want to ask you kind of more of kind of wisdom, like what make you, like what kind of mindset, like kind of make you decide with confidence something and moving forward, like, as a business owner.
That is challenging because I think the whole process is you're constantly learning every day. Like your learning never ends. And there's so many things that you could look towards, you know, reading books, you know, there's a lot of resources, but I think most important is just educating yourself, researching, figuring out what your product is, who you're going to be marketing to. It is overwhelming and very daunting. That just takes time for you to grow and build and get to know your market, your product, and have that confidence. It's not something that you just wake up overnight and you're like, I have the perfect product. I mean, that would be great. But you know, it takes time, trial and error, like any business, any product, trial and error. And you find you might be surprised that you might not be from where you first started, or you might be further advanced into what you had created in the beginning. But if you don't do it, you don't try it, you'll never know.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, you can look at your numbers, sometimes it's just trusting your gut, honestly. Doing, you know, you also do your research. And then, yeah, sometimes you pivot. You start doing one thing, and you decide the market's changed, times have changed, and you pivot to something else. And honestly, pivoting is sometimes is just how you stay in business, because there's not things are constantly changing. So what could be a right decision today is the wrong decision 1 year from now, and you don't know. And I think I was taking a class myself today, where someone was saying that you just make a lot of small mistakes, then you know how not to make the big ones. You learn from those small mistakes, and they're small. You can just brush them off, move on, right? And then that'll help keep you from making the big ones because you've learned along the way. So I think that rather than placing the pressure to always make the right decision, you make your best educated guess, and then you make another one, another one. I mean, you'll be making decisions nonstop. It doesn't really change. Yeah.
Yeah, I always go through that like on a daily basis? Am I making the right decisions? I ask everybody. My team is over there, and they're like, yeah. I'm always like, is this right? Is it the right direction? Is it the right decision? And of course, everyone wants to make the perfect decision, but there's no perfect decision. And sometimes you just have to just put yourself out there and just try it, and then you know.
Yeah, and then you know.
Yeah,
I think
then you
that
know.
makes sense, one way or another.
That's where I think when I guess that's what drives. If I never. I would always wonder. So. Or just continue for that success.
Yeah, and I think along entrepreneur, you have the ability to make those decisions. When you're working for someone else, usually making the decision for you and you're following through. But you have this privilege of making all those decisions. And then you have the privilege of seeing the direction. Very rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. So I think that's all we have tonight. Thank you both so
Thank
much.
you.
And
Thank
to
you for
all of
having
you.
us.
So this event is in collaboration with the and Merchandising Program in the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resilience and the Hawaii Technology Development Corporation. Entrepreneurship Live is sponsored by Tony Bernheim in honor of Saul Reinfeld, Catherine Linham, and Alan Wong.